Before we start this video, a large thank you to Mexica, Strength, Rue, Adrian, Social Mean One, Highland Femboy, Tabby, and Home for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and thank you all very much for your support. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner and Eclipse for their immense support to the channel this month on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hello my friends, today we are going to add a sleep state, and we're also going to add an event trigger which will wake up all sleeping creatures within a set radius. So let's go to the idle state mode in the enums and add sleep. I probably should have erased that comment there, but that's okay, I'll do that later. And then let's go to the idle state, the actual script itself, and let's go down to right below patrol. And we're going to make a protected virtual void virtual in case you want to override it for a different kind of state on a different creature. We're going to make it a virtual AI state, not void, sorry, sleep until disturbed. We're going to make it pass an AI character manager, call it AI character, just like above, just like idle and patrol. Under sleep options, we're going to make a serializable field, and then I'm going to make this a string. And we're going to have two strings, actually. We're going to have sleep animation, and we're going to have wake animation. This is just in case that you want different sleep animations for different states or, the same creature. Like you could have 3 zombies with 3 different sleep animations, for example, and 3 different wake animations. So storing it locally here, you can just make a bunch of different versions of the state. So I'm going to defaultly set them to sleep 01 and wake 01 as their animation names. You don't need to set a default value if you don't want to. And now under sleep until disturbed, we're going to say AI character.navmesh.enabled is equal to false. And then I am going to say private bool sleep animation set is equal to false. And then right under sleep until disturbed, we're going to override reset state flags. And we're going to say sleep animation set is equal to false. So whenever we leave the state, we're just going to basically reset that flag to its default value. Okay, we're going to say if the sleep animation has not been set and the AI character is not awake, then we're going to have to do some stuff. Now we don't have a flag yet for is awake on our network manager. So we're going to make that right now. But this right now is going to say there's an error because this doesn't exist. That's okay. Let's go make it. The reason why we're doing this, by the way, is in network variables, because if you have a character join your game, or a player rather, and you have AI that are sleeping, after you join, we can check to see if they're sleeping and then play the sleep animation for them on their end so it syncs. So we just need to know if the AI character is awake or sleeping at any point during the game. All right, let's go over now into the AI character network manager. And I'm going to yoink a network bool off of the character network manager. I'm just going to quickly go over here. And yoink is active. And then change is active to is awake. First of all, I'll make a header for sleep, because we're going to have a few variables here, 3 I believe. Let's see, we have is awake, defaultly is set to true. So most of the time the AI creature will always be awake at start. We're going to switch this when we spawn the character and set it up accordingly. So next we're going to have to use a thing called fixed string 64 byte. Because to my knowledge, you can't use a typical string as a network variable. So in order to use this, you're going to have to come up here and add a library. I think it's using unity.collections. Yes, it is. So this is basically just going to be a string, but with a max character value, and it's going to allow us to use this as a network variable. So think of it like a string, basically, just a bit weirder. So we're going to call it sleeping animation, and we can set it up by default to sleep 01. Again, our network permissions for reading is everybody, and our write permissions is only the owner. Do the same thing with the waking animation. So copy this and paste it, fixed string 64 bytes, and we can say wake or waking animation, and defaultly that will be wake underscore 01. All right, looks very good. So we want to set these on our idle state whenever we set our sleeping animation and whenever we play it for the first time. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to simply say the sleep animation set is equal to true, and then we're going to say AI character network manager sleep animation dot value is equal to, and we pass our sleep animation, and that's it. So it's going to treat it basically like a string, except when we call it for plain animation. I'll show you one little thing we got to do. You basically just have to say dot to string to make it work normally as a string when you're playing it from an animation, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I'm going to rename this to waking animation to keep it consistent with the network variable name, and I am going to then say AI character dot AI character animator manager. There is no AI character animator manager there. Dot play target action animation, and we're going to pass the AI character network manager sleeping animation dot value, and you're going to say it's going to give you an error. It's because you need to say value dot to string, just like that. Now, alternatively, you could pass the sleeping animation here in the state, but I just did this to show you how it will work if you want to call it and use that as a string for an animation. So it will be .value.toString. Okay, next we're going to say if AI character combat manager current target does not equal null. So if you have a target, we should also check too to see if the character is awake here, or rather is not awake. So we can say if AI character is not awake .value, then we're going to come down here and say AI character network manager is awake .value is equal to true. If the AI character is performing an action, is not performing an action, and they're not dead, then we can play the awake animation. So we'll just come here and say AI character animator manager, and again we'll use the one from the network variable. We can say AI character network manager waking animation .value .toString, and then true. All right, so let's say and just make this a bit neater so it's not like 3 if statements. Let's just make it 2. Looks a lot cleaner. There we go. Much easier to read. Nice around the eyes. All right, cool. Now right below that, we can do return switch state pursue target state, because this now would imply that you have a target. Obviously, if your target's not null and you are not awake, we're going to make you wake up and then play the waking animation, and then you can go pursue your target. Otherwise, we're going to say return this. And that is really most of the logic here for the sleep state, because it is pretty basic. We're just playing an animation when we get into the state, and then we're waking up, playing the wake animation, we get a target. But there's other logic here that we're going to get to in a moment. First, let's go up to our tick. Let's make a case for the sleep by saying idle state mode.sleep return, and then we're going to return the sleep until disturbed. So remember a while ago we made, or just last video I believe, we made the alert AI character. We're going to set that up too in a moment with our character. But also one little important piece of information that is good for people who are optimizing already. If you disable your AI right now and re-enable them, you might notice that your animator is going to play the empty animation most of the time. Well, come down on start and say animator, whoops, that's the depreciated version. We're going to say animator keep animator state on disable is equal to true. And what this does is if at any point you disable the animator component or the game object and then it becomes enabled again, it will save the position you were at in the animation. So this is especially useful for something like a sleeping animation or a dead animation, where if your character is dead and you disable the game object and re-enable it, you don't want it to go to the empty state in the animator. You want it to still be on the dead animation. Likewise, the same is true for sleep. So whenever I cover optimization later with AI, we're going to make it so we disable AI that are very far away from any player. This, at that point in the video series, will come in handy because re-enabling them will have them keep their same animation state. So just throwing this in here right now in case some of you guys want to go get a head start on that. That's a very useful thing to know. Let's go down here on network spawn, and we're going to go down right below. We're checking for our HP value changed, and we're just going to check to see if we are in fact not awake. And if we are in fact not awake, we're going to make the animator play an animation, which is going to be our sleeping animation we get from our AI character network manager. So again, this is basically useful if you join the game as another character and the host's AI is not awake. You're just going to sync up and play the proper sleep animation like them. You can also do a check too for is dead. So if you join a game and a character is already dead and you want them to play the dead animation, just say animator.play, and then you could say dead 01. If you wanted to, you could store the animation they played when they died and have that animation play. Up to you, whatever way you want to go about it. This is just a very simple way. All right, we can save that. And now we can go over, and I have 2 of these animations, zombie sit idle and zombie sit to alert. I believe these are on the zombie animation pack we have, and if they're not, let me know and I'll add them to it, but I'm 99% sure they are. Also, if you are a patron and you would like these animations, just add me in the Patreon section of Discord, and I will go ahead and drop them in for you. But yeah, you can use any sleep animation, guys. It doesn't need to be these, obviously. If you have your own sleep animations, cool, use them. There are a bunch of free ones on sites like Maximo, I'm pretty sure, and you can probably find some stuff on the New Guys store. But if you want to support the channel, you could pick up the zombie pack, and the pack will include these animations. So anyway, let's drag these in over to the action override, sit idle and sit to alert. And again, if for some reason these aren't in the pack, please let me know and I'll make sure they are, but they should be. I just grabbed these from my Nephilim folder, specifically where the zombie animations were. All right, so we're going to call this wake up and, sleep 01 and wake 01. And we're gonna make a transition from wake to empty and no transition from sleep, because obviously we want to keep the character in sleep animation until they wake up. So back over here to alert characters sound on AI character combat manager from the last video. If they are sleeping, here is where you wake them up. All we want to do is say if the AI character idle state mode is equal to sleep, and we got to make that public because I believe it is private right now. Yes, it is. go to idle state mode, make that a public, or make a getter for it inside the state. Up to you. I'm going to make it public. So if the AI character idle.idleStateMode is equal to idleStateMode.sleep, then we want to do a couple things. We also want to check and the character is not already awake. So if the character is not awake, .value, then we can do some stuff. So we can simply say AI character network manager is awake .value is equal to true, and we could say AI character and we could play your waking animation, and then we could set a target. I'm going to double check though, because I did this a little bit differently than what I did in Nephilim. So I'm just going to actually open up Nephilim in a moment off video and just double check everything. Let's just see to string. So we're going to play our animation, and then we're going to set our target. So again, if they are sleeping, this is where you wake them up. All right, I am going to jump back into the project and go to the world scene, and I'm going to click on this gentleman and his idle state. Whoops, right, this isn't Nephilim, it's not there. It's going to be actually in the state data. Idle state undead. I'm going to switch this to sleep. And I'm actually going to spawn a few of these guys because we're going to do something else a little while after where we set up a trigger to wake up all nearby characters. It'll be like a kind of like an ambush, but not full on because we're not choosing their attacks preemptively and whatnot. We're just making them wake up and kind of target the player instantly. So yeah, it's still an ambush, I suppose. All right, let's go over to the AI character spawner, and let's make a header for sleep, like we have one for patrol. And you can just say serialized field bool. We can say is sleeping, defaultly at false, because I'm going to assume that most of your AI characters are not going to be sleeping. And then under attempt to spawn character, after the check for the AI character not being null, we're just going to say if is sleeping, AI character network manager. We're going to say is awake value is equal to false. All right, very cool. Save. Now I am going to copy or select all these and tick is sleeping and untick my patrol path. I'm going to save the world scene now. And I'm going to go into the scene here, and they're sleeping. Cool, excellent, very good. So if I walk over here now, they should wake up. Yes, they do. So that's the sound of my footsteps. And you can see he's turning around to see what's up, and he's targeted me. Very cool. Okay, so now what if we want to make these characters basically target you when you walk near the area but ignore sound, kind of like an ambush? Well, if we go to the idle state here and we untick will investigate sound, if we go into the game, he'll actually still see us if we go right in front of him because he's still looking for a target. You can see there, he gets up and sees me. We can disable that obviously by going to the idle state. And then right here for find target via line of sight, we can just do a check to make sure the character is awake. This is obviously up to you if you want this or not, but defaultly, I want to make sure the character is awake before attempting to find a target via line of sight. You can make a flag for that if you'd like. Now if I go in here, I can run around him and nothing happens. He's just there and he won't get up unless I punch him or hit him somehow, and at which point he'll target me and then try to attack me. But we can do something cool here now. We can make an event trigger. I think we used one of these before with our boss, the same naming convention. We call it event trigger boss event or something. But we're going to call this one event trigger. You could call it ambush, or you could call it, I'm actually going to call it awake nearby creatures or awake nearby characters. That's more of a fitting name for it, I think. But ambush works too. I'm going to drop in my namespace, and I'm going to rename this to Event Trigger Wake Nearby Characters. All right, very cool. I'm going to save this, and we're going to use onTrigger, and we're going to use a float variable to make a serializable field for awaken radius. Now, this is not to be confused with the trigger radius. So the trigger radius will be where you have to step to trigger it. The awaken radius will be how far away this will wake up creatures. So you can make the trigger radius like 1 meter, but you can make it awaken creatures like 20 meters away if you want. So we're going to use onTrigger enter, and we're also going to use onDraw gizmo selected so we can see our awaken radius in the scene without having to start the game and do a bunch of weird stuff. We can just click on it and highlight it. We're going to say gizmos.color equals color.red, gizmos.drawSphere, transform.position, and then we're going to pass the awaken radius. This makes it so when you click this game object, you will see a sphere with that radius. Why a sphere? Well, we're going to use a sphere collider for this. If you want to use some other collider, you can. But basically, we're going to use a sphere, and we're going to check for a bunch of colliders, and then we're going to, for every character in this set of colliders, we're going to try to wake them up. So we're going to say, using Unity.NET code, if we're not the server return, we're going to check for a player variable by using other.getComponentPlayerManager. And then we're going to say, if player is null, simply return. And down here, I'm going to make a comment. This is where you can check for friendlies. So for example, if you had invaders, you don't want invaders to set off these traps unless you do. but this is where you could check for that. So check for the character type, like host, cooperator, invader, etc. And then you could check for sneaking. So in the future, when we go to, if we ever add our sneaking and hidden, you can make sure that if the character is hidden, they don't necessarily trigger these triggers. Entirely up to you, of course. This is always optional. And then we're going to make an array of colliders called creatures in radius. We're going to use physics.overlap sphere. Again, sphere because I want to use a sphere collider here. So we're going to pass the position of this by saying transform position. We're going to pass the awaken radius for radius, and we're going to cast this on the character layers only. So then we're going to say for, as in a for loop here, and we're going to check for every collider in creatures in radius. So we're going to do it by saying for I is equal to 0, I is less than creatures in radius.length, I++. We're going to make an AI character manager variable here, and we're going to call this AI character. We're going to say it's equal to creatures in radius I get component and parent. The reason why I'm using get component and parent is because this could tag, like, say, an arm collider or a leg collider, which will be usually a child object of your main AI character manager. So we'll just fetch that and get it from get in parents. And then we're going to say if AI character is equal to null, simply continue, move on to the next collider in this for loop. Then we're going to say if AI character is dead, simply continue. We don't want to go and try to wake up a character who is dead. Next, we're going to make a list of AI characters, and I can't use list because I don't have my library. So we're going to come here and say using, I can't remember if it's collections generic or just collections. It might just be system.collections. No, I think it's generic though. Yes, it is most certainly generic. So come up here and say using systems.collections.generic, and then make your list of AI character managers and call it whatever you want. I guess I should have called the collider array creature colliders in radius, and I should have called this one. I'm just going to call this one creatures to wake equals new list AI character manager. So we are going to say if creatures to wake does not contain this AI character, add it to the list. Why are we making a list? Well, we only want to call some things on each character one time, not multiple times. It's just a small optimization, that's all. We're going to say if the AI character network manager is already awake, we don't want to do this. So if they're already awake, simply continue. Don't want to try to wake up a character and play animation if they are already awake. Otherwise, we're good to continue with our next for loop. So outside of this original one, down below it, we're going to do a for loop now for our creatures to wake up. So for each creatures to wake.count, or sorry, not for each, we're doing a for loop and we're iterating through creatures to wake.count. We're going to say creatures awake I.ai character network manager is awake.value is equal to true. Then you play your animation and then you set them as a target. That's my bad. I think I said that earlier in the video, but I meant to say that here. You set them as a target here because this trigger is actually passing a player to target versus just making a noise in the level. Because you could shoot an arrow next to an AI character's foot. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get a target. They're just going to check the location of that sound. But here, since a player is passing through this trigger, this is meant to be like an ambush or a trap, we want to pass them as the target. So let's say creatures to wake, and then we're going to say character combat manager, AI character combat manager, set target, and we pass the player. And I think I've done this, I think I don't need these two lines up here. I don't think we need to set is awake or play target action animation. I'm just going to test it first just to make sure. But I think we just do that from our idle state. So I'm going to go in here and drop in a sphere. And I am going to disable or even delete the mesh render. We don't need that. Now I'm going to add the new script we just made, event trigger, and it is not showing up for whatever reason. No, it's just not. Okay, I'm just going to go to trigger. No, still not there unless it's there and I don't see it. All right, I'm just going to drag it from the main asset folder here. Now I am going to turn on gizmos. I'm going to, you can see here, there we go. That's the radius which we're going to wake up creatures. So any creature within inside this red sphere will become woken up. But to trigger this, we need to go inside the sphere collider's radius, this thing right here. So when the player steps inside this, it will wake up every creature in the red sphere, this sphere right here. So I am going to make this sphere quite small, and I'm going to make this layer of this game object, event trigger, and I'm going to make this sphere collider a trigger. And then we're going to save that. Now if I jump into the game here, this should wake them up. And yes, it does, and they should target me. And no, they're not. Okay, I'll be right back. Yes, so right here, you can see here, we're already checking if our current target is not equal null on our sleep until disturbed. And if we're not awake, then we're waking the character up. So like you could just check for a target up here and then return pursue target and then, you know, play your animation. But we're not going to overcomplicate that. You don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is keep everything the way it is here, exactly the same. and go back to the event trigger and delete these 2 lines above here. We don't need to play the target animation or set awake to true, because the second we give them a target, our idle state script does that for us. Now if I run behind these guys, boom, there they go. They are awake and they turn around and they're going to try to kill me. All right, very cool, guys. There you go. You have a way to make your creatures sleep and awake. And you can do some cool stuff with this too. It doesn't have to be just a sleeping animation. Like in Nephilim, I use this for my miners, and they'll just mine an iron rock. And I use the ignore sound check, so basically they won't even target the player. And it looks like they're just performing a job in the background. They don't care about the player's existence. So there's a few cool things you could definitely do with this. And as always, I'd like to thank you for joining me this weekend. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. An immense thank you to my patrons. It is genuinely because of each and every one of you that the series exists and continues as it does, so you have my gratitude. I will see you guys next week, where we will continue our work on the AI. And by the way, we just released a new asset in our shop. Our character model made it for us, the same guy who does our models in Nephilim. So if you want to support the channel, it's called the Mimic Character set, and it will be live on the asset shop. Okay, everybody, that is it for me. Once again, I hope you all have a very lovely weekend, and I will see you guys next week.